This is a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District. It's September 21st, 2020. This meeting will be conducted by video conference in accordance with the Governor's authorization concerning suspension of certain open meeting law requirements for COVID-19 coronavirus disaster. Madam Secretary, would you do us the honor of calling roll, please?
Sir, Mr. Contreras?
Present.
Ms. Malhado? Ms. Haynes? Ms. Haynes? Mr. Mesa?
And Ms. Haynes is here. I didn't hear Linda. Here, I'm here.
Where is she? Where's Linda? Mr. Overfeld?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Smith was going to be out today.
And myself, sir, we have a quorum.
Okay, let the record show that we do have a quorum of board members and that this meeting was duly called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We will have opening ceremonies, first with a moment of silence for personal reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, now I can see everyone. Welcome. Okay, we are going to keep with our agenda. We're on item 8, reports, online parent forms completed through Skyward. Michelle Smith. Welcome.
Okay. Good evening, President Metza, Dr. Rios, members of the board. Provided in your packet tonight is a copy of the typical back-to-school forms that parents are requested to fill out for every student every year. The forms have gone virtual this year and now can be completed online in half the time through the Skyward Parent Portal. This leads us to tonight's presentation of the completion process. I have for you here a dummy student, John Doe, with Remy Doe for the parent. So when a student logs into their parent portal, they will see this message on their home screen saying to go to the student family information for Susie. So just quickly, I will take you through the screen. All of the forms on the right-hand side are the forms that are included in your packet. So the parents will be able to just now log into Skyward and complete their forms. Just virtually, it takes anywhere from 4 to 6 minutes to complete forms, where it would take maybe 30 minutes originally to complete all the forms. Once the parents have completed all their forms, they'll see the green check marks, they'll complete the process, and then they'll be done for the year. So by going virtually online like this, we have been able to realize a savings of over 400,000 paper copies, which equate to about 90 reams of paper, not to mention the manpower that is saved at the campus level in processing the forms. The beauty piece of this is all the changes that are made within Skyward to family, addresses, or student information are live. They automatically update in Skyward. So now it's no longer dependent for someone at the campus level to have to enter the information. It filters down to all the students. So as a result, we have the most current information, contact information for the parents, whether it's the physical address, mailing address, the phone numbers, email addresses. So that makes it more easy for us to be able to reach out and actually contact our parents. I know that has been some concerns in the past. In addition to the 400,000 copies that are being saved, we have, at present time, 56% of our parents have so far completed the process. So moving forward, I know the campuses are reaching out to the parents and walking them through the process. They are opening up the labs to have the parents come in and actually complete the forms as well. So that concludes my presentation. If there's any questions at this time.
Questions from board members? I see no hands raised. I just want to thank you again. I think that it's so important to update all the necessary information, especially this very important year, to update addresses and additional information. So great report, and we're always glad to save paper.
Yes, most definitely.
Plus, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Next report, I believe we're going to probably not have the AirVac report. We do not have all the necessary MOU and paperwork. So we are going to table this item. Going to item C, report, cybersecurity update. Les Hengate.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Henge, I'll take care of the slides for you.
Thank you. Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. We wanted to give you, our administration wanted to give you a brief update on our cybersecurity response. You can go ahead and move to the next slide, sir. Some of the areas that we're going to look at briefly are going to be our current initiatives and for processes and procedures. We'll look at process improvements, cybersecurity, the cybersecurity response team, the implementation of new antivirus solutions, disaster recovery plan, future initiatives to include disaster recovery site, isolation and prevention, and network security extendability. For our current initiatives, we have completed to date the cybersecurity vault. The cybersecurity vault takes daily backups of all of our network files. It packages those files up and sends them to a secured offsite location that physically resides differently from our data center. We were in the process of doing this project, this partnership with Dell, at the time of our security breach that we had. So I believe we were about 60% completed on that implementation when that happened. So we were able to recover data, but at this point it has been completed 100%. Our cybersecurity training for fiscal year 2020 has been completed. To date, we have completed the cybersecurity training on 1,482 employees. That information has been set off to the state for compliance. We have also developed a cybersecurity response team. Currently, that team has members of our network administrator position, one of our network administrator positions, and our network support specialists. Their primary tasks are preventative. They monitor firewalls, antivirus, and potential malware attacks on a regular basis, monitor intrusion detection systems so we can find these attacks and stop them before they do damage to the network, unlike what we had prior to the attack. And we've also implemented a change management form. This process allows us to improve communications. So, for example, if we make changes to servers on a Friday, we take a look at what the impact of those updates could do, and we provide a backup plan in the event that those changes don't go as expected. It also helps us troubleshoot if an attack comes in, what changes were made to the network prior to that potential attack coming in. So communication overall has gotten better amongst the technology department. We're in the process right now, or we've actually started the rollout of a new antivirus solution. This antivirus solution is what was implemented after the attack, and this will allow, it's a cloud-based solution. So machines will receive updates on a regular basis, not just when they're on our network, but whenever they connect to the internet. And it also will provide forensic analysis of the data that's being transferred across the network. This solution, we were introduced to this after we were attacked. Had this solution been on prior to the attack, we would have had a lot more information on the forensic side. Some of that information would have been the source where it came from, what type of attack it was. We would have also been able to automatically stop the attack. It takes a artificial intelligence type communication, and when it sees that something is happening outside of the normal operations, it will isolate it and hold it in place. As you're aware, the last attack that we had we happened to be doing an implementation on a weekend and we physically saw the attack happen. This software will be watching our network on a regular basis. When we're not logged in, it's still working for us. So this is a more efficient and effective method as far as antivirus solutions go. So we will be rolling that out between the next few weeks here. We've already started with it, but we feel very confident that will put us in a much better position in the future. We've also started working on a disaster recovery plan. This plan will allow for guidance on future attacks. It will identify critical systems that need to be restored, and it will also outline configurations on systems. During our last attack, there was a lot of assumptions and there was a lot of additional work that had to go into identifying what type of damage was done. With this manual, we'll be able to streamline that process, and in short, that will allow us to isolate an attack and recover from that attack much quicker than what we were able to do in the past. This will definitely be helpful moving forward. The future initiatives that we're currently working on are taking more of a proactive action for our disaster recovery site. This is a secondary location, so in the event something were to happen in our main data center, we would still be able to have certain capabilities like phones, internet, email, still be able to continue operations while we're working on correcting the issue. Our projected cost on that is $400,000. We think that we can do that over several phases over a long period of time, and ultimately getting us to the point where we want to be. Isolation and prevention, the sandbox appliance, that allows us to take in a possible attack and be able to dissect it and see exactly what it's programmed to do, if it's trying to steal information, if it's just trying to change passwords. In order to combat the future attacks that may come our way, we need to understand what they do, so then we can figure out how to be able to fix that. The sandbox appliance will allow us to do that piece. There is possibility that the funding source for that will be covered under our E-rate Category 2 funding as well. And the projected cost on that is $125,000. The other component here that we're looking at is network security and extendability. Until recently, we've only had what we refer to in IT as north and southbound traffic. So that's any traffic coming in from the internet or going out to the internet. Now we're looking at east-west traffic, which is from this computer to the computer next to me. So it's giving us four-dimensional look at how to be able to isolate those attacks, block them, and be able to keep operations moving forward. And that solution also would be covered under E-rate Category 2 funding, and the projected cost on it's roughly $140,000 for that piece. And any questions?
Board members, questions? Liz, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On those training for employees, have we done any exercises locally here, like phishing exercises for employees that perhaps work in departments where billing comes in?
At this time, we've given the cybersecurity training, but we have not done active simulations. It is covered under our software agreement, and I do anticipate that we will be doing that in the near future. At this point, we're still starting with this remote learning, and I want to make sure that we're applying resources to that, but absolutely, we will be doing that moving forward.
Okay, and first of all, I do want to compliment the department on doing so many things in a short time. You actually have started this prior to the official attack. So we had some things in place, but I see that it's going to take it is going to take time. I know that, and funding, but the attacks are sure to come in the near future, and it will continue. But I know TASB has, I know Mr. Overfeld and I have attended many sessions regarding cybersecurity, and so for some reason they select districts, you know, that they find places, you know, and it's for some reason school districts are very popular with these attacks, and so I'm hoping that we can do locally here some training exercises where they can spot you misspell words and things of that nature, so that we can prevent any future attacks. And I know that TASB has a full-time employee that presents at the different conventions and conferences, that I'm sure that he would have resources that provide for specific training related to phishing exercises.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? And I thank you for the report.
Okay. Thank you.
Next report that we have is the freshman life skills construction. We have Les Hinge again.
They're gonna, Mr. Mesa, they're gonna probably try to allow the architect to come into the meeting so he can share. If they're not successful, then Mr. Henge or I will quickly review it.
So Dr. Rios, does everyone have all these plans that are sitting on my desk?
Yes, sir.
Everyone has it?
Yes, sir. Copies were made for every member.
I know it was extensive drawings that we have in our handbook as well.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I haven't seen you guys in a while. Dr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, Mrs. Haynes, how are you doing? And I saw Les in here earlier.
Everybody's here, Jim.
All right, I'm gonna get started. You know, we looked at this building probably about a year and a half ago and did an assessment on a couple of things. One is, you know, the structure, insulation, windows, doors, code compliance issue. So part of what this work entailed was bringing the building up to code for life safety purposes mainly, but also for energy codes. So part of the challenge here also was to provide a secure environment when the students are dropped off and picked up. And the way it was located, it was in an area that shared a dock, you know, with really the service side of the freshman campus. So part of our work includes a new pickup area for the students, which is situated on really in the lower, I think the lower left-hand photograph shows where there was a canopy, or we're proposing to remove the existing cover that's there and incorporate a new pickup area on that side. And then, you know, along with, you know, new fences and driveways for added security for that building. But so looking at the structure, it's a concrete or a CMU block building around a metal framed building. And so part of the challenge there was to be able to add the insulation along the exterior. And we're proposing to really skin the whole exterior with a rigid insulation that will allow us to attach a new siding or exterior finish to the building. And then along with also insulating the roof system at the deck. It's currently insulated at the ceiling, a very inefficient way to insulate a building. And then also incorporating new windows and doors, and the glass being of a nature that is a safety type of glass, which again, it adds to the safety for the students. The room was laid out, and part of the intent was to provide a flexible learning area for the teachers as well as the students. It would allow you to close down into 3 separate areas if you wanted to. We have the classroom 1, 2, and 3, or you could open up the entire area if you wanted to have joint learning. There are other areas within the space. We have chill out rooms. We're really just a timeout area for a student who might be having a bad day to spend, really gives them a time to cool down. And then we've incorporated also testing rooms within those in classroom 1 and classroom 2, or classroom 3, I'm sorry. Classroom 2 is mainly an open workspace that would provide learning on really domestic type activities, cooking, washing clothes, simple things like that. But it also allowed us to do a large work table that the teacher can work around and actually have the students gather around. So part of the intent on this was not to incorporate a lot of built-ins, but really do furniture that would allow flexibility in how the teachers wanted to set up the space and not really be locked into one type of teaching environment. The existing building, what we did also was incorporate natural light into that space. And what you're looking at is a section actually cut through both midpoints of the structure. And that center space being where that large open teaching area is, or otherwise known as classroom 2, that has the big island and really allowed for group and open group teaching in that space, but also allowed us to get natural light into that building. There really isn't a lot to look out outside of the building. So really, the fact that we wanted to introduce the natural light into that space, and this gave us an opportunity to do it and really help that center core. The section, if you look at the lower section and off to the left of that drawing, illustrates the canopy for the pickup area, and that is new to the structure. Part of this scheme involved some structural modification, but very simple modification to that prefab metal building. And really that's very, very simple structural modifications in that regard. The bus stop area though is designed to be a standalone, not tied to the building. So we didn't rely on the existing structure to help carry those loads. And you'll see on the top photograph that is the bus stop or the pickup area for the students, which is the opposite side of where the dock area is, or where the pickup is currently. It also shows the light monitor or the center light well in the center of the building. And then the siding, which incorporated the use of pre-finished metal along with a hardy type of material for it's the white area that is underneath the porch area of that building. So part of the challenge here was designing this and trying not to modify as simply the structure that is existing, and really just reskinning it or recladding it. Some of the other photographs, the one to the bottom left-hand corner shows, the bus pickup from a distance, actually looking back towards the campus. And then the middle one and the middle photograph shows an optional or alternate play area, and kind of reflective of what some of the architecture is on the campus, along with on the right side, the lower right-hand photograph is additional parent pickup area for their kids. Any questions?
Board members? Anyone? We're okay. Mr. Orfeld?
Yeah, Mr. Jim, I just wanted to go back to the light vestibule that you were talking about, that would allow more light in. And since it is essentially a metal framed skeleton inside the building, you said really wasn't going to be any need for major structural modification to support that across the top of it.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I think that's great because yeah, since there is nothing that it looks out on, and the ability to give natural light into a building goes in, and also I know has been shown to be better for learning and stuff of that nature, since that way you're not just in a closed off classroom and not know what's going on. So I like that idea. I like that optional one too that shows the play area, because it mimics the high school.
Right.
The outside in the courtyard of the high school there. Again, I know that one's optional, but I like the inclusion of that. That's a nice architectural effect. So that's all I have, Mr. Russell. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orfeld. And I also would like to echo that the play area looks fantastic. I just have a question in regard to, I see that it's boarded up on two sides. The other side, would there be a fence there, or?
It is a secure area, and it should be actually around the whole perimeter. There is a perimeter around those areas. It was real interesting, talking to the teachers and some of the concerns and some of the requests that they had made, and part of it really dealt with security and I don't want to say containment, but it's creating perimeters that will, and it's really for the benefit and the safety of the kids. So yes, there is.
Oh, I'm glad that you have that already in place, because with just sometimes a little distraction, the students may wander off, and so it's something that's needed.
Mm-hmm. It was a fun little project. I mean, it was actually it was a fun little exercise, but at the same time, it needs to function, and I think a lot of the I guess the criteria was from the staff, and really having the flexibility and the need for light, and really those secured areas, which they don't have now. And so I think all in all, it should be a wonderful little building. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a real neat project.
Great. Anyone else with a question?
Just a follow-up comment to that. Like he was saying about it'll ultimately be a really nice building, and I know we do. We focus a lot on athletic venues and school venues and stuff like that for the general population, and I think this will be a great thing for students that fall in this category as well, to be able, and the teachers to be able to have something new and nice to go in and be proud of. So.
I agree.
Well, everything looks great. I think the only other thing that I would add, and this is probably for Hector, that if there's any value engineering and things change, that it would be made aware of for the board to be made aware of.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
So Dr. Mesa, part of our challenge, of course, right now is like everything. I mean, it's all about budgets and things like that. The way that we authored the documents would allow us to value engineer when it goes out for bid. So there'll be items that you can pick and pull out of the project. But again, everything, I wanted to make sure everything was included on this package. And again, I'm sure we'll have some value engineering to do on the building, but it should be a lot easier and less painful after we receive the numbers.
And the reason I mention that, because in the past, we've had, again, drawings brought to us, and then the final, work that is done, it looks quite different in appearance. So we want to make sure we stay updated on that.
I was very sensitive to that, and I think that's one thing that we wanted to respect. So it was drawn the way it was presented, and it really is a point now to see how everything how the numbers come out.
Thank you very much for the report.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Thank you, gentlemen and lady.
Thank you. We'll go on to our next report is E, 8E, 2020 Extracurricular UIL Transition Plan. Dr. Rios.
Good evening, Mr. Mesa, members of the board. The last time we visited to talk about the transition plan for students to come back, we indicated that when the students came back, we would also begin with our UIL activities. And today I wanted to give you a brief overview of just how that's going to work, because they are limited in nature. We don't want the community to think that every activity is back on and then wonder why their children aren't participating. TA does require us to have a transition plan right along with opening the schools that involves what we're going to do with athletics, and that we post these plans on our homepage, our school websites. So in an effort to resume all these physical activities in a safe and cautious manner, we prepared a plan, and we're going to briefly describe it today. The plan for now involves volleyball, Del Rio High School cross country, golf, and football. Volleyball started today. Cross country has already been active with the students individually, but as a group again today, and golf can start today, and football also started today. Right along with the athletics, I can also share with you that our band started practice today, and so did our Queen City Bells. The areas that they're going to be using are the Carl Guys Gym, the Ram Stadium, the grass fields, what we refer to as the lower fields, and the Castellanos Tennis Court Complex, and the Country Club for golf. All fall sports will adhere to the UIL sport-specific instruction, strength and condition practice guidelines. So for example, this week, for most sports, it's called the acclimatization period. So when we say that football is practicing, they're not out there in full gear. They're just warming up. They're going over procedures. It's more of a strength and conditioning camp. And UIL requires that you have at least 1 week of it before you go into full contact practice. And it is only the varsity, and they did divide the offense and the defense, so only half of the group was out there at one time. And for volleyball and tennis and cross country and golf, it is the varsity, as I said earlier. None of the sub-varsity groups are practicing. The pre-screening process is similar as if they were becoming in high school to classes. There's temperatures being taken. They're being questioned. Same questions that we asked the students when they arrived to school this morning. Maintaining social distancing as much as possible. And kids are masked up out there. Dr. Pettis and I went and visited the practices early this afternoon, and the students were being very cautious. The masks kept falling off, obviously, when there's a lot of physical activity, but they would put it right back up. And at least the drills that we saw, the students were as much as possible, 6 feet apart from each other. Part of the plan includes having a departure protocol and a travel protocol. The coaches are very careful to not have kids just hanging out of the parking lot or congregating outside. They're being supervised. They have specific areas for them to get picked up. When they do travel, they will be pre-screened before they board the bus, just like they are for practices, and students will be assigned just one to a seat. So incidentally, what we've told all of the fine arts activities, cheerleaders, band, dance teams, that they're not going to be traveling to out-of-town football games. Not that we're going to save money, because then what we'll do is we will take that money that we saved on these trips, and when they go to their competitions, then we will double up on the transportation so that they too can travel just one to a seat. This is what the schedules look like for football. The first game will be on October 16th at Southwest Legacy. Cross country, they'll have an invitational cross country meet here in Del Rio on September 26th. Tennis, October 2nd at LBJ. And volleyball, October 3rd, also at LBJ. For golf, there's no schedule at this time. The tournament dates are not posted due to the limits on the tournaments. And some of the limits that we set ourselves was no overnight travel. And that's just our rule. We don't want kids in a hotel room together, because that's a whole lot of proximity. So those are just some different rules that we have for this year. Are there any questions, Mr. Mesa, members of the board?
Yes, Mr. Orfeld?
So Laredo ISD and Laredo United ISD, I guess, finally, I know they were still on the fence about what they were going to do. So they have finally agreed to start competing. They're going to do football and all that. Have a season.
Coach,
Football and stuff.
Mr. Orfeld, Coach Rick Smith is going to be meeting with them the rest of this week and trying to finalize plans. But they've always said that they weren't going to compete until late in October, and that there was going to be just what they call zone play. They're pretty much sticking to the plans. They had talked about possibly allowing the athletes to come back earlier, but we haven't received any final word on that. So right now, the schedule that we have up there is the one we're going with. I know that the football team did have to make some arrangements to play some alternate games against schools that they hadn't planned on playing in the past, as well as cancel a whole lot of games that would have otherwise been played in a pre-district. They really haven't changed their plans about coming back earlier. They're still staying with the same plan not till late October. That's at first game that we have against them, which will be, I believe, our third game.
Okay, and when we do travel, like you said, it'll be one seat to a bus. Are we going to be running, if and when we do travel, like say for football, we'll be running charters, or we'll be running yellow buses? There's a 48 passenger bus. That's what, 24 people in that you can essentially put on a bus. And like you said, that's why we're not going to send band and cheer, because we're going to need excess buses, right?
Yeah, we haven't finalized the buses, but at this point, I would venture to say that it would be a whole lot of charter buses, just because we can't take that many buses out of circulation here locally.
Okay. And then I guess the final question that I'm sure will be asked, and has been asked, when we do have a home game, who is the district going to allow into the stands to watch that?
We had asked the other teams in the district to not allow for anyone else other than home fans. But because the facilities in Laredo and Eagle Pass are so much bigger than the Del Rio facilities, they can afford to have all of their fans social distancing and visiting fans. so they didn't agree to that concession. We are planning on having our student groups, our band and our dance group down on the field along the track, and just save the home side for fans. Dr. Perez and the athletic director and myself have visited along with the fine arts director. We're going to have a couple student sections where there's one student to a seat, as much social distance as possible. Then another section is going to be designated for families of two, so mom and dad can sit together. And then another section, groups of three, mom, dad, and a sibling. And then another section, groups of four. The reason we're doing this is because the rule allows us to have a max capacity right now, 50. I don't know if the 75% capacity extends to activities like football games, but by grouping them together in families and selling the seats in those type of clusters, it'll allow us to have more fans in the games, family units not being 6 feet apart, and in that way come closer to the 50% capacity. At this point, we're considering having online ticket sales. It's free to the school district. Everybody that purchases a ticket will be approximately, I think, a quarter or something like that additional cost. But we are considering doing it online. That way there's no handling the money, and really it's no expense to the district. But we haven't finalized that yet. We have a couple more meetings. We will not, at this point, we have not decided to exclude anybody. It's just on a first come, first served basis. Obviously, we are going to give a specific pass to the students that they will use to buy their tickets. It's kind of like a private event for them. So they'll be the only ones that will be able to buy seats in the student side. And then the other seats where they're group 2, 3, and 4, those would be open to the public. No reserved seating, but they're all in groups of 2, 3, and 4, and you have to buy the ticket in that grouping.
Okay, and like I said, there will be no reserved seating for this year for season ticket holders. But everyone keeps their seats hopefully for next year, right? If we're able to continue back to the normal, those individuals who've had the same seats since the stadium was built will still be allowed to keep those seats, right?
Yes, sir. I do believe Coach Smith already sent a letter out to all the regular season ticket holders, informing them that the following year, those seats would still belong to them if they were willing to buy them.
Okay. All right, I'll yield for now.
Thank you, Mr. Orfeld. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Meses, Fred Contreras.
Mr. Contreras?
Hey, Mr. Rios, Dr. Rios, apologize. So on the, okay, so if I understand correctly, it's no overnight travel, correct?
Correct.
And then only charter buses, correct? No, no school district buses?
No, sir. I'm sorry. I should have explained that with a little bit more depth. Probably no school district buses to areas where you have to leave before the end of the school day. So if there is a Saturday competition, we would try to use school buses for two reasons. One, they're more affordable, and two, it would give our bus drivers a chance to make some additional money, but more so for the fact that they're more affordable. So Saturday competitions, depending on the location, we would consider using school buses, but mainly for Saturday. Then again, when we play in Eagle Pass, we will probably still take charter buses, because even though it's a 7 o'clock game, I'm sure that the coaches intend to leave before 3:30.
Okay. All right. The only other concern is if there is a long drive, well, there'll be, and we have to use district buses. Will we be able to send 2 bus drivers only because of the amount of hours that they're driving, and midnight and coming back in late night? You know, that would be my only other concern and question.
Yeah, yes, sir. They've done that in the past where they send bus drivers extra to relieve the other drivers. or provide hotel rooms for them during the day to rest, so that then they'd be available to drive back in the evening.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Dr. Rios, we still have the athletic buses, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My question has to do with concession stand and selling of food products, items. Is there, will there be indicators there to distance each other?
Mr. Russell, we haven't made a final decision on the concession stand. My recommendation at this point is that we don't have them, and it's simply because we don't have enough of a waiting area. And if y'all have been to the games before, you see how congested it gets in front of the concession stand. That, coupled with just handling of the food, just doesn't sit well. If anybody's interested and they want to have walkers go up and down the stands selling water or soda, that we would possibly allow. But even then, all the exchange of money, I'm just really inclined to not have any concessions at all, and maybe consider allowing people bringing in bottled water into the game. But we haven't made a decision. I'm just inclined to not have any of that because of the congestion and handling of money.
I understand. We have a lot of booster clubs and they do a lot of good, but it would be difficult to select those items that would be less, dangerous. The other question has to do with notifying all the athletic department. A lot of times they have bottled water and they leave it and somebody else will take it. I mean, it's like, what can be done, to make sure that they dispose properly of either empty bottle, water bottles, or I don't know if they have disposable cups and things of that sort to drink water.
Right now, Mr. Mesa, the athletes are being encouraged to bring their own water bottles, and we're not handling any of the traditional type of hydration that we normally do. That, coupled with the fact that they're only practicing a couple of hours, but I know that Doc Dixon is out there. He has 2 stations, one inside the gym and one outside in the open air. Each one is manned by a licensed, what's the word I'm looking for, our licensed physical therapist, and they're considering the hydration. They have ways for the students to fill up their own water bottles, but we're not giving them anything that they would share there on the spot.
Yeah. Anyone else? We're good? I think
Licensed athletic trainer, I apologize. I know that y'all had the word, you just didn't want to embarrass me. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you for the report. We're going down the agenda. We're down to consent agenda. You can see all the meetings that we had. I want to thank all the board members for coming at least every week and sometimes twice a week for the different meetings. So we have the minutes of all these meetings that we had. There's also other purchases that are made. If you would like to pull any of these items or correct any minutes of the meetings, now's the time to do that. If not, again, one action will take care of everything on the consent agenda. Anyone have a question? I don't see any hands raised. There being none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mr. Overfeld, seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Amy? In favor. Myself in favor. Diana in favor. Mr. Overfeld? In favor. Mr. Contreras? In favor. And I know Mrs. Webb was supposed to log on. We don't have her. But motion passes unanimously. I do want to say that the donations will be posted on the website. And again, we appreciate every individual and business making donations for the benefit of everyone, our students and our teachers and our staff. As always, we want to thank you for supporting our district. For the sake of time, we will not be reading the donations, but they'll be posted on the website. We're down to administration 10A. Consideration to approve the first reading of TASB policy update 115 affecting policies DIA local, FB local, FFH local, FFG local. Sandra Hernandez.
Good evening, Mr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. This evening, I'm going to be bringing forth 4 of the local policies that are being recommended for consideration that are part of Update 115. The board policies DIA local, FB local, and FH local include new Title IX regulations, which came into effect on August the 14th, which define sexual harassment under Title IX, and establish detailed procedures for how districts must respond to notice or allegations of sexual harassment. Specifically at DIA local, it pertains to employee welfare, and text at FFH local pertains to student welfare. The revisions to FB local update the provisions of the Title IX coordinator, and corresponding wording changes to the ADA Section 504 coordinator. Also, in this policy update is the policy FFG local. This is an updated policy on child abuse and neglect. It has been significantly revised based on recently amended administrative code rules. And you have copies of the draft policies in your packet. I can answer any questions of the board if anyone has any questions.
I want to thank the policy committee again. We have a ton of policies that have been updated, so we decided to kind of divide it and not make it a long night for all of us. So we'll be having some of these at every meeting for the next couple of meetings. Anyone with a question? I think we all have copies there. We can see what changes were made. I see no hands raised. So Sandra, we're okay.
Okay, sir, then I'll read the recommendation. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the first reading of TASB Policy Update 115 affecting policies DIA local, FB local, FFG local, FFH local, as presented by the Board Policy Committee Review Committee.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Diana Gonzalez. All those in favor? Amy in favor, and myself in favor. Diana in favor. Mr. Orfeld in favor, and Mr. Contreras in favor. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you,
Go
sir.
on. Thank you, Sandra. Next item, we have 10B, consideration to approve the contract with Dr. Antonio Cadena for consulting services to establish health services protocols and standing orders for San Felipe CISD nurses. Sandra Hernandez.
Yes, sir. Good evening once again. In accordance with policy, a physician who has been delegated prescriptive authority under Occupations Code Chapter 157 may prescribe epinephrine auto-injectors in the name of a school district in accordance with law, the Education Code 38.211. This contractual agreement permits Dr. Cadena to have prescriptive authority for unassigned EpiPens, which under local policy may be administered in the event of an emergency. Additionally, this contract establishes other health service protocols and standing orders for our school nurses assigned to the schools in our district. And I can ask any questions.
Anyone with a question? I see none. Recommendation.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the superintendent to sign the agreement and approve the contract with Dr. Antonio Cadena for consulting services and to establish health services protocols and standing orders for San Felipe Del Rio CISD nurses.
With the recommendation from administration, I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion made by Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Amy? For? Myself in favor? Diana in favor? Mr. Orfeld in favor? And Mr. Contreras in favor. Motion is approved.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
evening.
Administration 10C, discussion and possible action to grant superintendent authority to petition City of Del Rio to annex land for new elementary school and take all necessary steps associated with the process. Dr. Rios.
Thank you, Mr. Mesa, members of the board. The land that the school district purchased is not yet within the city limits. The way that those developments were being annexed is as each development was platted, they were doing voluntary annexation. The property that we bought wasn't yet platted for the development of houses, but the adjacent property directly to the west is annexed into the city. What we fully expected that we always expected that the property would be annexed. The problem is that we can't wait until the school is built because we need for the city to review the plans and approve the plans. We would hate to build a school and then come to find out that it didn't exactly conform to what the city was asking, and then we'd have to have some kind of remodeling done. What we've done is we visited with the city officials and we've asked to do a simultaneous process. If the board approves for the superintendent to take all the necessary steps to get the property annexed into the city, they will begin the review of the plans. And that way the timeline for construction isn't held up. We'll do both at the same time. So today I'm just asking that the board allow me as the superintendent to take all the necessary steps, including paying any fees associated with voluntary annexation.
Questions from board members? Mr. Orfeld?
As the city, in your discussion with city officials about trying to do a simultaneous process, has the city indicated or given indication that if we petition that, yeah, we're going to go ahead and annex it there or take it down the road?
Yes, sir. I directly visited with Mr. Matt Winoski, and then when he replied, he shared an email where Mr. Chapa had already begun those discussions with them, and they were all agreeable to the process.
Okay, does council have to take a vote to annex?
They have different committees that meet, and eventually I do believe it does take action by the council. And it is a process of about anywhere from, I think, a month to 2 months. Mr. Contreras was just on the council, he might recall.
Yeah, it all depends when they put it on the meeting and then if it goes through the committee. However, once it goes through the committee and they accept, they'll bring it up to the council and they'll just approve. Usually with large entities like ourselves, with the school district, we shouldn't have any problems as long as we conform to all the local standards.
Thank you, Mr. Contreras.
Okay, so what we're asking to be annexed is what we own. There's not anything else that somebody else's house is sitting on that's technically in the county and would suddenly be in the city. Because I could see that as a protest happening there, but it's just our chunk of land. Right?
Yeah, correct. And again, the properties that are the houses that are already there, adjacent to the property that's being developed, which is right next to ours, those are already annexed. It's only our property.
So, Dr. Rios, the action here would be just to authorize your request to annex the land on which the school will be built. I've always brought this up. I know that I've asked before when the plans were being developed, but if there's any additional cost, for example, of replacing the main water line that supplies the school or any other major costs, would you make us aware of it? Because what I'm thinking is, let's say fire hydrants and any sewer pumps or anything that would be in the vicinity of 150,000 or more. Would you keep us updated in regard to once they look at the plans and request for some additional changes?
Yeah, yes, sir. And in every case, at least in major construction that we've done, those have all been required, but I will definitely share with the board.
Just so we'll know what is going on. I know that this annexation is just one step. Then, you know, they'll see the plans and then bring other items up that might be questionable or concerned.
Yes, sir.
Okay, recommendation, please.
Oh, it's a little lengthy. It's
We don't have any further questions, right? I didn't see any other hands. Okay.
the land upon which the new elementary school will be built has a portion that needs to be annexed by the city of Del Rio. This is to ensure that the elementary school can meet all applicable codes and standards when it is built. Given the need to get the annexation process begun as quickly as possible and to ensure it is accomplished in a timely manner, I am recommending that the board grant me the authority to take all necessary steps required to do so. This can include executing documentation and paying any expenses associated with that process.
We've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Contreras, seconded by Mr. Overfelt. All those in favor? Amy? In favor? Myself in favor. Diana in favor. Mr. Overfelt? In favor. Mr. Contreras? In favor. Motion passes. Go on to the next item, curriculum instruction. Consideration to approve the 2020-2021 asynchronous attestation plan summary and submit to the Texas Education Agency. Ida Gomez.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. Due to the disruption caused by the COVID-19 emergency and the consequent exercise of the waiver authority provided by the Commissioner of Education and Texas Education, local agencies must submit an asynchronous learning plan of action. This must be reviewed and the approval must come from TEA in order for us to earn daily attendance funding. The online application, which includes attestations and open-ended questions, has been provided in your packet, and it must be approved by the TEA in order for the LEA to continue receiving funding for asynchronous attendance at the end of the grace period. The copy of the attestation includes 4 different requirements. We created a plan under instructional schedules, material design, student progress, and implementation. Under the requirements, the superintendent and the school board must attest that the commitments are being met as of the date of the attestation when it's submitted. And the attestation is due to TA by October the 1st. As mentioned, you do have the plan. I can go more into detail or I can answer any questions that you would like.
Questions from board members? I think everyone pretty much understands
Thank you, Mr. Mesa.
what the ADA requirements are. Would you read the recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approves the attestation for asynchronous instruction and gives approval for submission to the Texas Education Agency.
Thank you very much. We've heard the recommendation from the administration. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Contreras. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Overfelt? All those in favor? Amy, in favor? Myself in favor. Diana, in favor. Mr. Overfelt? In favor. Mr. Contreras? In favor. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Mesa.
Thank you. We go into technology and operations. 12A, consideration to approve the construction documents with Kissling Architects Incorporated for renovations to the Life Skills Building at Del Rio Freshman School. Les Henge.
Good evening once again. President Messa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. This agenda item is an extension to the presentation that we had earlier in regards to the life skills renovation project at Del Rio Freshman. The approval that we'll be seeking is to proceed with putting these construction documents out for bid. And everyone does have a copy of the documents, both the interior and exterior, as well as MEP and the mechanical layouts and ADA details. We do have a proposed timeline for this project. And based on our projections, we're looking at a project completion of 8/6 of 2021.
Any questions from board members? I think we have a lot of drawings here, very detailed. We'll have time to review these and perhaps we can come back and ask questions, but I know there's a lot that we have here. Anyone that has a specific question right now? I think we've heard the presentation earlier. I see no hands raised. The recommendation, then Mr. Henge.
Thank you. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the construction documents with Kissling Architects Incorporated for renovations to the Life Skills Building at Del Rio Freshman.
Heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Amy Haynes. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Contreras? All those in favor? Amy in favor? Myself in favor? Diana Gonzalez in favor? Mr. Orfeld in favor? Mr. Contreras in favor? Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henge. Business and Finance, 13A, consideration to approve submission of application for the CARES Act Coronavirus Relief Act, or Fund, CRF, LEA Reimbursement Program. Amy Childress.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. The Texas Department of Emergency Management is administering the Coronavirus Relief Fund LEA Reimbursement Program, which will provide reimbursements to LEAs for eligible expenditures incurred between March 1st and May 20th of 2020. To be eligible for this reimbursement, the supplemental expenses must have been necessary expenditures incurred due to the COVID-19 pandemic and allowable costs that were not accounted for in the most recently approved LEA budget as of March 27th, 2020. Specifically, these costs are expenses to facilitate distance learning, including technological improvements in connection with school closings to enable compliance with COVID-19 precautions, and other eligible expenditures, including payroll and benefit costs of educational support staff or faculty responsible for developing online learning capabilities necessary to continue educational instruction in response to COVID-19 related school closures.
Questions from board members? Amy, so this would include everything from hand sanitizers, masks, plexiglass, and so forth?
Yes, sir. Anything that this round is of those costs that were incurred between March 1st and May 20th. It also will include the premium pay that we paid our employees during the time that we were closed. And then there will be another round of funding that will take us from the May 20th through the December 31st later on in the year.
Okay, good. Thank you for answering that question. Anyone else? We're good. The recommendation, please.
All right. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the submittal of the CARES Act Coronavirus Relief Fund LEA Reimbursement Program application.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Contreras, is there a second to the motion? Mr. Orfeld, all those in favor? Amy, in favor? Myself, in favor? Diana, in favor? Mr. Orfeld, in favor? And Mr. Contreras, in favor. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Go on to 13, Business and Finance, 13B, consideration to approve resolutions to designate authorized representatives in Text Pool Prime, and First Public, Lone Star Investment Pool. Amy Childers.
Yes. Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, once again. The Public Funds Investment Act was originally approved in 1987 and is amended by the legislature on a regular basis. The act requires that all investments made by the district comply with PFIA and all federal, state, and local statutes. Authorized representatives of the district must be updated when an authorized representative change replaced by another one. In compliance with the Public Funds Investment Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 2256, subsection A, the updated forms are attached under separate cover for approval for both entities. And the changes that we are making are we are removing the name of the prior comptroller and adding the current comptroller.
So that's the only reason we're doing, we had already done this before. So
Yes,
we're
sir.
changing. Oh,
Yes, sir. We had a change in personnel. Yes, sir.
okay, great. Any questions? Seeing none, the recommendation.
All right. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution to designate authorized representatives as presented under separate cover and authorize the board president and board secretary to sign.
Thank you very much. You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Ms. Sorrelfeld, is there a second to the motion? Amy Haynes, all those in favor? Amy, in favor? Myself, in favor. Diana Gonzalez, in favor. Ms. Sorrelfeld, in favor. And Mr. Contreras, in favor. Thank you. Motion is approved.
Thank you.
We go on to 13C, consideration to approve resolution to designate authorized representatives for investing. Amy Childers.
Good evening once more. In compliance with the Public Funds Investment Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 2256, subsection A, a resolution which is included under the separate cover authorizing the superintendent and the chief financial officer to negotiate and execute any and all contracts and other documents to establish accounts for the purpose of investing in certificates of deposits and money market and other accounts. The only change we're making to this resolution is the last resolution has the interim CFO title, and we're just removing the interim.
Sure, any questions from board members? We're good? Okay. Recommendation.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution to designate authorized representatives for investing as presented under separate cover and authorize the board president and board secretary to sign the resolution.
With the recommendation from administration, is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor? Amy Haynes in favor. Myself in favor. Diana Gonzalez in favor. Mr. Orfeld in favor. And Mr. Contreras in favor. Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Amy.
Thank you. Good evening.
Evening. Go down to human resources, and I believe we're going to table a couple of these. We do not have, we had a vocational nurse, licensed vocational nurse, and I don't think we have an applicant. We're going to table that one. We're going to go to item 14B, consideration to approve the submission of the 2020-2021 request for maximum class size waiver exception.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Mesa. You're referring to the vocational nurse in the personnel items in the closed session. This is just a job description because we had left the licensed vocational nurse off of some list that Ms. Garcia will review for us. So just for the.
We're not going to table this.
Yeah, no, we're going to do items 14A and 14B, and then we're going to ask to table the remainder of the agenda, including closed session, all the way through adjournment. So,
okay, I see. Okay. Okay, so then we go back to consideration to approve employee job description and evaluation forms for the following. Licensed vocational nurse, Aide Garcia.
Yes, good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. In your board packet, you have a copy of the updates for the licensed vocational nurse. And the only thing we're changing here is from exempt to non-exempt. And this is to meet compliance with the Department of Labor and the Fair Standards Act. That's the only change being requested on this this job description and evaluation.
Questions from board members? No questions. The recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the employee job description and evaluation form as discussed.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Ms. Orfeld. Is there a second to the motion? Ms. Diana Gonzalez, seconded. All those in favor? Amy Haynes in favor. Myself in favor. Diana Gonzalez in favor. Ms. Orfeld in favor. And Mr. Contreras in favor. Motion's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we go to 14B, consideration to approve the submission of the 2020-2021 request for maximum class size waiver exception to TA. Aide Garcia.
Yes, sir. Every year, school districts must request a class size waiver for any class over 22-to-1 ratio from kinder to fourth grade. This year, due to COVID and in order to keep our face-to-face instruction classes to small size, we're requesting that several of our remote classes so that we file an exemption. So we have a total of 56 classes that will be over the 22-to-1 ratio, but all these classes are divided into a morning and afternoon session, ensuring that teachers can interact with students via Zoom. So at no time are they over the 22 ratio because they're divided by a class in the morning and then one in the afternoon.
Questions from board members? Ms. Orfeld?
So this is for the hybrid classes that are coming in the morning, afternoon, or I guess I don't understand the morning.
This is
part.
So for example, Mr. Overfeld, let's just say a teacher here at Garfield next door. The students that are going to be coming face to face, our goal was to limit the number of kids in the class right around no more than 15. We're only able to do that because the teachers that are teaching online, we can fill their classes up to 30 students, knowing that they will, their blocks of time are 3 hours at a time. So if I'm a teacher that has online students and my classroom has 30, I'm teaching them in 2 separate sessions. I'm teaching 15 in the morning and 15 in the afternoon. But for the record, I have 30 students assigned to me. But when we're actually in class, face to face, on the computer, I'm only seeing 15 students. And then at 1 in the afternoon, or not 1 in the afternoon, at 12 o'clock noontime, I start with a second group of my second 15. And so by stacking the online teachers where the students will never come to class, then I can have smaller ratios in the kids in the classes where they're actually coming face to face. Now, as more kids want to come face to face, we will have to transition some of the online teachers to face and probably increase some of the numbers from 15 to 20. But for those, we're building dividers in the classes. Anyway, that's a different presentation. Did I explain it, or do I need to try it again?
I guess maybe I'm confused. So you gave the example of a Garfield elementary teacher, their online Garfield elementary teacher. And my understanding is elementary is, I guess, K to 2 is asynchronous, right?
Yes, sir.
And 3 to 5 online is actual, like what we're doing here. So that's what you're referring to as the split. Some of them are in the morning, and then in the afternoon part, they're doing asynchronous stuff, and those who are in the afternoon, etc. But K to 2 There's no actual Zooming or whatever with the teacher.
Correct. There's no actual Zooming, but there are some recorded lessons, and there are some times when the student can have face-to-face time with the teacher, even though it's asynchronous. So even in the asynchronous classes, a teacher has a schedule for students in the morning and a separate schedule for the other half in the afternoon. So whether you're synchronous or asynchronous, you're still divided into two separate groups.
Okay, that's where I was getting a little confused, was because of the K to 2 and 3 to 5. So, okay, I understand now. Thank you.
Amy had a question. Amy, yeah, okay.
Sorry. I got it. I didn't understand it either. That's why I raised my hand with Josh, because I was totally confused. So, but you cleared it up, sir. Thank you.
Anyone else? You're okay. Okay, Dr. Rios, we don't have any questions. You want to?
Ms. Garcia will read the recommendation, Mr. Mesa.
Okay.
Thank you. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the submission for the 2020-21 request for maximum class size waiver exception to TEA and the compliance plan.
That's a recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Contreras, seconded by Mr. Orfeld. All those in favor? Amy, in favor? Myself, in favor? Diana, in favor? Mr. Orfeld, in favor? And Mr. Contreras, in favor. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Garcia.
Yeah.
We did not have an applicant for the health services coordinator. And again, there are no other items on the agenda. So therefore, there's no need to go into executive, but Dr. Rios, you want to explain?
I was just going to ask Mr. Mesa, for the record, do you have to vote to table item 14C?
14C, consideration to approve the interlocal agreement between San Felipe Duro CISD and Valverde Regional Medical Center. And that was because we do not have a MOU.
Yes, sir. They did not provide you, so we don't. That's why we didn't even make the presentation up front. So
Okay.
y'all will table that, and then also table the remainder of the items.
Mr. Orfeld?
Based on that advice, Mr. Mesa, I motion to table item 14C until the next board meeting, as well as table 17 closed session and 18 reconvene the open session, which would take us right to the end of the meeting, sir.
Okay, there's been a motion. Is there a second to that motion? Mr. Contreras? All those in favor? Amy? In favor? Myself in favor? Diana Gonzalez in favor? Mr. Orfeld in favor? And Mr. Contreras in favor. Therefore, there's no other items on the agenda. Is there a motion for approval now for the adjournment? Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor? Amy Hayes in favor, myself, Diana, and Mr. Orfeld, and Mr. Contreras. Good night, everyone, and thank you again for being at our meeting today.